Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and there's one thing that I think everybody tends to lose sight of from day to day in this game is that we're literally, it could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen in the next 10 minutes. We've got a summary judgment or a settlement announcement or a combination of both over the course of days is imminent. It can happen any minute, any day, any time, and most likely happens by the end of this month. In my opinion, this guy's right on this. XRP will be the first crypto in the United States to have clarity. Ripple, Brad, Chris has fought hard not just for XRP, but the entire crypto industry. True. Our victory is near. I can only hope that it I keep saying that if the judge follows the law, she cannot say XRP itself is security, and she cannot say XRP in the secondary markets are a security. Those two things, and John Deaton's always seemed pretty confident about those two things too. So in that scenario, what you have is a digital asset that's the only one in the United States with real clarity, with legal clarity. And that's something to be excited about, and I am. Now, I want you to listen to this. This is, they had another hearing, I guess, yesterday, and it's talking about how getting regulations, which Gary Gensler's not willing to give us, is a matter of national security.
In the current environment, we are failing at making this happen as a country. Our regulation is currently chaos for stablecoins. If I am an issuer and I want to create a stablecoin, I technically don't know if I'm going to be answering to a state regulator, a federal banking regulator, the SEC, the CFTC, and it puts you in the same position as if you were out with friends and you were going to play, some sports game, and somebody tells you, well, we may enforce the rules of baseball or football or basketball, and we're not going to tell you which in advance, and maybe some of them will all apply at the same time. It's unworkable. And what this means, and it pains me to say this as an American, is that things are moving offshore. I can say this with certainty because I advise my clients right now to do exactly that. There are other regimes with significantly more regulatory clarity than what we have provided here, where if you are a good actor who wants to comply with the law, who wants to do the right thing, you want to go there because you know you can do it with certainty. And it's bad for jobs. It's bad for the strength of the dollar. It's bad for our status as a reserve currency. It's particularly bad for national security, as blockchains have a significant degree of transparency that's not present in markets like actual cash markets, right? When somebody transacts on a blockchain, it's public. We may not always know right now who transacted, but you know the amount, the time, the wallets they traded with, what they sent back and forth. And with the richness of data, it's just a matter of time until you can identify the wallets. This is a huge data analysis tool to enforce our rules on the financial system that we are potentially giving away. Right now, over the past year, the biggest winner has been Tether. They are offshore. They don't work well with us. They facilitate some activity they probably shouldn't, but the chaos is leading that stablecoin to grow while others shrink. The other thing that's happening is other countries are moving into this space. Just this morning before the hearing, I saw news that Russia is exploring legislation to formalize their ability to transact in crypto. If we don't take the field, others will do so before us, and they may not be doing it in ways that we like.
All right. Thanks a lot, Gary. And then here, this goes right in line with what he's saying. Breaking: European Parliament just voted 517 to 38 in favor of MiCA, signaling final consent to landmark crypto licensing law. Then we had the guys from Coinbase. They're over in the UK. Great few days in London with Brian Armstrong and other Coinbase colleagues meeting government leaders and regulators on the important steps they have taken to advance their goal of making the UK the world's leading crypto hub. Meanwhile, in the United States, we get Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren. If we don't take out the trash, folks, the trash is going to run us into the ground. Breaking, Coinbase launches offshore exchange in Bermuda. Thanks, Gary. Breaking, cryptocurrency exchange Kraken has secured a key registration with the Irish government, allowing it to operate across the EU. Thanks, Gary. This made me laugh today because this is exactly what Sam Rayburn, who Gary tried to invoke in his hearing, this is probably what that guy, while he's turning over in his grave, this is probably exactly the sentiment. Don't drag me into this, Gary. That made me laugh this morning. Then it'd be funny if it wasn't so serious and so awful for our country that we've got two people that seem to not even like our country, Gary and Senator Elizabeth Warren, that are driving this industry into the dirt. Listen to this.
Well,
And by the way, these are not honest people.
I just note something about you. You mentioned your hearing about the recent events in the markets, and I would note there were 3 banks that failed in those handful of days, those 4 or 5 days. And 2 of those banks, the first and the third that failed, Silvergate and Signature, were engaged in the crypto business. I mean, some would say they were, crypto banks. So it's interesting just how this was all had some crypto narrative as well.
It is.
And then this is the New York Department of Financial Services superintendent who is contradicting what he just said.
Misnomer that the failure of Signature Bank was related to crypto. What we saw with Signature Bank is that it had a new-fashioned bank run, and the outflow of deposits were from a broad depositor base, including wholesale food vendors, fiduciaries, trust accounts, law firms. And in fact, the outflow of crypto deposits were in exact proportion to their representation in the depositor base overall. And in fact, some of those deposit outflows were actually pre-planned. So it's, of course, unfortunate that there was a run on the bank at Signature prompted by what we saw with SVB. But it is not the case that the failure of Signature was related to crypto.
Well, you don't say. He and Senator Elizabeth Warren would have you think that it was because of that. This is all elected officials. Anti-crypto is a perfect way to piss off the biggest voting demo in 2024. And he's given you a chart of this. And I said, if I was a young politician, this chart would tell me, don't follow that old crow, Senator Warren, over the cliff. That's exactly what it would tell me. Now, let's get back to Tether, because Warren Davidson pointed out what I consider to be the obvious.
Mr. Campbell, Tether is the largest stablecoin in the ecosystem, and it's headquartered in Hong Kong. What does that mean for the stablecoin ecosystem that Tether is located offshore? And how has Tether become such a large player in the space?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would say, one, Tether has become a large player because they had a first mover advantage. They started in 2014 before other stablecoins, and that just speaks to the problem of inaction. When people can't move elsewhere, you end up with entrenched incumbents. 2, Tether has not faced the same kind of regulatory uncertainty. They don't have the concerns that others do about having to conform with something relatively strict and relatively demanding like the NYDFS guidance, which, by the way, I greatly support, having worked in that space as well. That keeps consumers safe. They're not transparent. It's unclear if they've always had all the reserves, and it puts people at risk. But when they are the default option because others are being hamstrung, it's what people use because there's demand for dollars on a blockchain. And so I think it's there just because it's been available.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And thanks for your clarification. I guess I would say I've felt at times that because they don't have the transparency and disclosure requirements, I've at times referred to it as a time bomb because we have clarity in New York, but we don't have clarity into Hong Kong's market. And frankly, the move to Hong Kong is a step in the right direction because for a while it wasn't even clear that they were accountable even in Hong Kong. So hopefully Tether's stable as purported to be, but I think the real opportunity for us is for this body to create legal clarity. And look, we hit Chairman Gensler pretty hard yesterday.
Yeah, so Tether's a ticking time bomb. You got that right. Folks, what I focus on is what are the digital assets in this space? What are the things that are hidden in a veil of secrecy? Those are the ticking time bombs. Look at Tether. Nobody really knows there's secrecy around what their reserves are. They've never really come out and shown you exactly what the reserves are. There's also, in my mind, secrecy about who's behind it. Okay, you got that. You've got the idea, the problem of the fact, how come Gary Gensler and all his friends who seem to be so anti-crypto, Tether certainly touches people in the U.S. How come they haven't gone after Tether? We know that they were working with FTX, who was offshore. It's almost like they have a thing for people that are offshore because those they can work with and not go after. Now, but who else? Where else is there secrecy? The Ethereum ICO, disguised whales. There's still secrecy. Why is that secret? Why is the SEC not interested in looking at that secrecy? And then, of course, you've got Bitcoin. And look, there's only me and one or two other people that keep blowing this horn. But Bitcoin itself has more secrecy around it than anything. Why would you have a government that has met with the 4 Satoshis but will not say, doesn't want anybody to even know that they did meet with them, and wants the narrative that nobody knows who it is to keep going? And here's the problem. Look right here. Bitcoin wallet from Satoshi era, dormant for over 9 years, has been reactivated. It's holding 6,071 Bitcoin valued at $178 million, folks. Here's my question, folks. When you look at that, ask yourself this. How could all these CEOs, how could all these Bitcoin maxi pundits and these people that are in companies that have fiduciary duties with these kind of things unknown, think about the tremendous liability that puts these people in, where they're touting this thing and telling people to buy this thing, and they don't know who created it. Or they do know who created it, and they have been lying and pretending like they don't, which I think a large percentage of them go in that category, by the way, which makes it an even bigger scandal. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe at the like button. Tell your friends and family that even though it doesn't feel that way some days, XRP clarity is imminent. Hopefully victory is imminent. Thanks for